So in yesterday's class, if you remember, like I was discussing sequence, right? So there are 3 sequence in Python. One is tuple, list, string. Okay. And we discussed these sequences, you can use a for loop, right? You can use a for loop for these sequences. And if you remember, the sequence is the variable which is storing your sequence knows about the start of the memory address. Okay. So it knows about like from where I should start, and then the index wise it will go and iterate over that sequence, and you can access all the elements which are there in the sequence. Okay. So let's say there is a list 1, 2, 3, 4, something like this. So I can say for I in this list, print I. We discussed this part, right? We can do this. Now, string is also a sequence. So I can say for character in some string, let's say A, B, C, D. Okay. And then if I say print character, it is going to output me like A, then B, C, and D. Correct? Because this is a sequence, it will start from A, then B, then C, then D. These are the elements which is there in this sequence. So I can iterate this way also. Right? Now, what I will be doing is, I will discuss these 3 questions, maybe not in sequence. First, I will discuss one question, then we will go through some of the concepts. Then again, I will discuss another question and something that way. Okay. So as of now, like I believe that you guys are getting comfortable with writing basic syntax and writing programs. Okay. But just writing program is not going to help you in industry. You have to write efficient code. Okay. So in previous class also, I was always doing this, like when I was solving that simple interest problem also, what I was doing is I was first writing the code with some hard coded values, some initial algorithm design I was doing, and then we can think like whether we can do better than this or not. Okay. Programming is a very iterative process. We cannot say that whatever program I have written, it is the best program possible. There is always a scope of improvement. Okay. And we need to always think through, can I do better than this? Okay. Anyone can write program, but being an engineer, being a software developer, we should know how to write efficient, performant code. Okay. Which is less resource intensive, less compute intensive. That is, it doesn't take lot of time, lot of resource, lot of computation power to execute or run or to do that computation for you. So always keep that in mind. Whenever you are writing program, you need to think whether I can do better than this or not. First, your first agenda should be to solve the problem in any approach that you are comfortable with. The basic approach, the straightforward approach, whatever you think you are comfortable with, you need to do that, and then think like whether I can do better, can I improve this code? So there is a subject on this whole thing called as data structures and algorithm. I highly recommend that you guys go through those concepts, but that is not like that is beyond the scope of this course. We are dealing with Python for beginners, but I will introduce some of the concepts from data structures and algorithm so that you get a start. You get a head start to do that. Okay. Now, let's discuss the question number 3 first. Okay. find sum of digits in a number. Okay, simple problem. You might have seen this problem in your college days, your school days, even 11th 12th also. Like if you had computers in your subject, you might have definitely seen this problem, like find sum of digits in a number. So there will be a number given to you, 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, if this is the number, I want to sum all the digits which is there in this number. Okay, so my output will be 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. Okay, so by default what you have done is pick this element from the end or from the beginning, using that mathematical operators, divide and modulus, remainder, all those things. You would have picked these numbers and added them together. I believe most of you have done the same thing, right? But we need to think, can we do better than that? We are using a programming language called as Python, which is like one of the most popular language today. So can we leverage some power of Python to solve this problem more efficiently rather than using all those complex mathematical operations and everything? Okay, I am not like, I'm just giving you a different approach, different way to think, but I'm not advocating for the solution that I'm going to say that, okay, this is the most efficient code. I'm just giving you a different approach to solve this. Okay, using some power of Python. Okay, now all this while, what we know, we have learned something, right? That string is a sequence and I can iterate through the elements in that sequence, correct? 1 2 3 4 5 is a number for you. What if I convert this to string? Anyways, the input that I'm getting from the user is a string, right? So I don't have to convert it. What I'm doing is I'm converting it to integral value. Then I'm doing all those complex mathematical operation of division and remainder, and then fetching the elements from the end and from the beginning and adding them together. But don't convert it to integral values. Keep as it is. So your input will be coming in string format. Let's say take simple number 1 2 3. Okay, forget about it, this spaces. Okay, this is the number 1 2 3 only. Okay, what I can do now is I can say for num in your this input, let's say this is input. Okay, I will, for num in imp. Okay, forget about input is a keyword, so I cannot use that here. So for num in imp, what I will do is initially I will assign sum equals to 0, and then I will say sum equals to sum plus int of num. Here I'm doing int of num. I'm converting this character, like the first character which will be fetched, that is 1, is also string because that is part of the string, right? So I'm just going to fetch 1, but here I'm going to convert it to integral value, and then I'm going to add it to sum, right? And then I will get the final output. Simple, right? No complex mathematical operations or anything, but we are able to solve this problem. Let's just run this on Jupyter Notebook and let's see if this is working for us. I will start a new notebook. So the problem was, I will be taking hard-coded values. You can improvise this code by all those input functions and everything. For now, I'm taking a hard-coded value. So let's say I'm assuming the number that I will be getting from user is in this form, in 1 2 3. Okay, now I can say for num in inp, and then and then I can say sum equals to sum plus int
int of num, sir.
For
Brains
oh,
should
okay,
be
okay,
in
okay, okay, okay. Sorry, sorry. For int of num. Yeah. So I'm getting the answer as 6. Correct. So in this problem, I'm not using those complex mathematical operations or anything. In one line of code, I will say this is one line of code. Just I'm going in a loop and I'm solving this problem. So this is how you will need to think analytically. First, solve the problem. Whatever ways you know, solve it. Like take the basic route, take the basic approach, and then maybe try to improvise it. Either uh, think through data structures and algorithm side of things, or maybe think through like, do we have something efficient in Python for that? Okay, so there are a lot of things in Python which we may not be able to cover in like every granular detail of Python in this class. This is just a head start for you guys. You will need to explore a lot after that. Okay, and there, because Python is a very old programming language, Python came before Java. Like when Java came into the market, Python was there before Java also. Okay, but why Java was popular initially, why Python became popular now, when Python is an older language, then why Python is becoming popular now, why Java was popular before, that is a different discussion altogether. Okay, maybe you can just explore a little bit on that, but for now the whole idea is Python is a very powerful language and there are a lot of things inbuilt in Python. Okay, and as an engineer you need not reinvent the wheels. So if there is something, directly reuse it. Okay, so you will need to explore those things. And today what I will be doing, the agenda of the class today is I will be giving you some problems and then we will be solving it in multiple ways. And first we will try with a very basic approach, and then we are going to see multiple ways of solving that using some Python power, or maybe trying to make the code more efficient and compute intensive. I mean less compute intensive. And we will be doing this for a couple of days, like 1 or 2 days, and you will be able to grasp the concept gradually. Okay, okay. So any doubts, questions on this solution? I will wait for 5-10 seconds. Just ping me on the chat like if you have questions for okay, okay. Then the next question is, write a program to find consonants in a string. That's fine, we will discuss this. Then there is another, because it is going to take a lot of explanation, like there are 2-3 ways we can solve this, and I will be discussing towards the end. The another question is, take an integral number n as an input and calculate the sum of first n natural numbers. So you all might have done the same, like I believe, or maybe if you already know the formula, you might have used the formula. So you might have done for I in range of 1 to the number n plus 1. Why? Because I'm saying calculate till number n. That's why I will be doing n plus 1 for the counter to go till n. Because the last index, whatever you provide here in for loop, your counter will go till that value minus 1. Okay, and then you can have sum equals to sum plus I, and you can do that. So again, if you notice here, I'm starting from 1. I could have done that simple, like a range of n plus 1. Anyways, anything added, like if you add 0, here it will start from 0. And if you add any value with 0, the answer will be the value itself. Okay, so there is not going to be a change. But why should I add 0? Should be your question. Any small or any bit of computation that you can save will be helpful. So think always in that ways. Something which is not necessary, something which is not required, Don't do that. So that's why I will start from 1. I will not add 0. Okay. And then sum equals to sum plus I, and finally you will get the output. You might have done this solution. Now, in this solution, what is happening? I am going in a loop. I'm going in a loop. I'm going in a loop. And this operation, I'm performing n times, correct? I'm going in a loop, and n times I'm performing this operation. So if my number is 5, I will do that addition 5 times. If my number is 10, I will do that 10 times. If my number is 1000, I will do that 1000 times. If my number is 1 million, I will do that 1 million times. So there is something called as time complexity and space complexity. So whenever you write your code, you need to validate your code, like how efficient your code is on these two parameters, that is time complexity and space complexity. How much time will it take and how much space it is going to consume. So you will always validate, check your code on these two parameters, time complexity and space complexity. Now, time complexity, you will not be measuring like how your code is, how much time your code is taking in seconds or milliseconds or hours. You are not going to measure that. There is something called as asymptotic notations. Okay, like you will kind of give an analogy. Okay, this will take this much time, that way kind of thing. So maybe if you are going in a loop, because I'm doing this action n times, I can say it will take big O of n time. Okay, I will say it will take big O of n time. Similarly for space, like if it is storing, like you have an array where you are storing n elements, then you can say the space complexity is big O of n. And always, because memory is very cheap these days. Initially, like back then, we used to have floppies and everything, which used to store 128 MB or in KBs. But now you can get 1 terabyte of hard disk for like 2-3,000, I believe. Okay, so memory is becoming cheap every day. Okay, so always you will need to focus on how much time that code is going to take. Because right now you are just dealing with 5 or 10 numbers. You are dealing with very small set of data. But going forward, in industry level, like you will be dealing with gigabytes, petabytes, terabytes of data. Okay, and when your program is running on such a huge amount of data, such a large amount of data, it is going to take a lot of time. So you need to make your code efficient so that it does the same thing in less amount of time. So you will always validate that how much time. So whenever you are doing a mathematical computation, okay, any mathematical operations that you are doing, that takes, we assume that takes constant time. That is, we say that big O of 1 time. Okay, the best scenario possible for a code is that it will take big O. Don't worry if you're not able to understand all these things right now. We will be discussing on these things little bit more in future classes, but pay a little bit of attention. Okay, so whenever sorry, Alexa, stop 1 second. Yeah, so whenever there is a mathematical operation, just plus, minus, multiplication, division, remainder, all those things, that will take big O of 1 time. That is constant time, and it is the best scenario possible. Constant time, good, boom, we will take that approach, that route. Okay, but when you are going in a loop, the number of times that loop is going to iterate, that will be your time complexity. So let's say this is a loop which is going for n times. I will say it will be big O of n times. It is dependent on the number of times it is going to iterate, right? And we assume that this n is a very large number. This n is a very large number. Like, let's say I am iterating for 10 times. I'm going in a loop for 10 times. Big O of 10 is also, we can say, is constant. Big O of 1 only. One second. Yeah. So these are asymptotic notations. Okay. Big O of 10 is also big O of 1. Asymptotic as in, like, we will do some kind of approximation. Okay. Let's take a simple mathematical concept. What is infinity plus 1?
Infinity.
Infinity, right? Infinity plus 1 is infinity, right? So we are saying this n is the number of times it is iterating is a very large value. Okay, this n is a very large value. We can say limit of n tends to infinity. When you are dealing with big amount of data and you are going in a loop, you will say that n is a very large number and this n tends towards infinity, or a very large number. Now, n plus 1 will also be n. Agreed? So when I'm saying I'm going in a loop, let's say I'm going in for loop, okay? And then here I'm doing some action 1, which is some addition, action 2, another addition, multiplication or something. I know this action 1 is going to take big O of 1 time. This will also take big O of 1 time, and so on. And finally, this is going for n times. So I can say, let's say this is 5 times or something. I can say 5 times big O of 1. And this whole thing is taking big O of n. So n will be multiplied these many times. So big O of 5 times n. And this is equals to big O of n. Why? 5 times infinity is also infinity, right? So that is how you need to judge, okay? So any mathematical computation, any assignment that you are doing on in your code, that is going to take big O of 1 time. But when you are going in a loop, it is going to take big O of n time. We will discuss more about these concepts. This is just a head start, okay? So we will need to think through this on these parameters, okay? Time complexity, how much time it is taking, and space complexity. These are our 2 parameters that we are going to validate. So in the previous problem, if you see, when I was taking sum of natural numbers, I was going in a loop. So this was, what was the time complexity for this? Because I was going in a loop and then adding every time, this is big O of n, correct? Now, in mathematics, you might have learned this formula, because this is a natural number series of natural numbers starting from 1, 2, 3. This is arithmetic progression, and if you apply that arithmetic progression formula, you will get this formula, n into n plus 1 by 2. This is coming from arithmetic progression formula also, okay? Or this is also called as, I believe, Hero's formula or something. I don't remember that exactly. So sequence of natural numbers is n into n plus 1 by 2. Sequence of square of natural numbers will be n into n plus 1, n into 2n plus 1 by 6 or something that way. Sequence of cube numbers will be n into n plus 1 by 2 whole square, that way, okay? But because I'm doing just one single computation, one mathematical operation, this will be big O of 1 time, right? To calculate the sum of numbers, okay, so there is someone who is asking, sir, what about big O of n square, is it same as big O of 1, big O of n? No, it is not same. Rachna, it is not same. We will discuss those things. That is just an analogy to explain the concept. Why n plus 2 is n itself, but n square, we will discuss those things. Don't worry about it, but it is not same, okay? That is just like infinity example that I'm giving. That is just an analogy for make you understand those concepts. Okay. Now, because I'm doing this mathematical operation for that entire loop in just one go, this is going to take big O of one time, and this solution is going to be more efficient, less resource intensive, less compute intensive, right? I hope you guys have understood so far, okay, and you are getting this basic idea of what is time complexity and space complexity. So these are the two parameters. Like whenever you write your code, write the basic solution first, okay, and then think through whether you can do better than this or not, okay. And we will validate all the solutions. Like going forward, we are going to deal lot with how to write efficient code. So first we are going to write a solution, and then we will check whether we can do better than this or not. Okay, hope I have made my point clear. Now let's iterate through some of the concepts, some of the basic concepts, then again we will jump to some of the problems. Okay. Okay, so again let's start with strings. So in Python you can have, like in other programming languages, you can store strings, or you can define string, or you can assign string within single quotes maybe, or maybe in double quotes in some of the programming language. Python is very flexible in those terms. You can give single quotes, you can give double quotes, you can give triple quotes, you can give double triple quotes, okay, single triple quotes, all is allowed. Everything is allowed. It will be a string, right? Now there is something called as escape characters. Like first let me deal with that, and then I will run through this code snippets. Okay, so let's say Amit, name equals to, you guys are able to see my screen, right? It is visible, or should I increase the font a little bit more?
No, sir, visible.
Okay, so let's say name equals to Amit. Okay, and if I say print name, it will print Amit for me, right? What if I wanted to, or let's take single quotes first, and then it will print Amit. What if I had Amits? So basically a exclamation mark here and this way. If I run this, it is going to fail. The reason here is what this is thinking, like Amit, here I'm ending that quotes. So that is the end of the string. That is what I'm saying to Python. This is the end of string. This is start of string. This is quote is start of string, and this one is end of string, right? And we have another end of string, but we do not have start for this. Correct? So that's why Python is getting confused, and it is giving you this syntax error. So to handle this, in other programming language, you might have heard about escape characters and other things. In Python, it is very handy. All you can do is, if within the text, within the string, if there is some single quote, put a double quote outside. This will work. See, if you have double quotes here, put single quotes. This will also work. Okay. If you have both double quote and single quote, let's say, if you have both double quote and single quote, put triple quotes. Okay. This is also fine. Like whatever quotes you have within the text, just try to put a different quotes combination of quotes outside your text. Enclose your text with a different quotes combination, and your code will work fine. Okay, now moving ahead. Yeah, so this is just the same example that I tried to explain above. Okay, now if you see this, like I have different variables, and in one I'm storing Python within single quotes, in other I'm storing Python within double quotes, in language 3 I'm storing Python within triple quotes, and language 4 is Python within double triple quotes. Okay, now I'm saying language 1 double equals to language 2 double equals to language 3 double equals to language 4. What will be the output?
False.
Okay, why do you think it is going to be false?
True.
Quickly.
Sir, I think it is true.
Yes, it is true, because we discussed, right? The string within a single quote or a double quote or a triple quote or double triple quote, whatever is there, it is the same string. Correct? You are just enclosing in a different combination of double and triple quotes, but Python will treat that as a same string. So if I run this, I should get true. Okay, now for now, forget about this format syntax. We will discuss sometime later. Okay. Okay. Or maybe let me explain this one itself here. So what I'm saying is Py version equals to 3.6, language equals to Python, and I'm giving a curly braces over here, which is a placeholder. This is going to be a placeholder. So far, if you wanted to print anything, what we did, we always gave everything in a text. In double quotes, I can write some text over here, but this is hard coded, right? This is not dynamic. I cannot change the values on the fly. On the go, I cannot change this value. But there will be a lot of requirement where you will need to change that text on the fly, on the go. In other programming languages like C, you might have used %d, %f, right? Which acts as a placeholder for you, where the values will be replaced. Like some values you are replacing that per %d, %f, you are putting a placeholder there and the values will be replaced. Similarly, in Python, you add this curly braces and then you give dot format this function, and whatever values you want to have here in this curly braces that you want to print, you specify here. So when I'm saying Py version equals to 3.6, language equals to Python, curly braces dot format py version, and I'm printing language, what it will print for me?
Python 3.6.
Python 3.6, that's right. Because this curly braces is a placeholder, Py version, like whatever is there in Py version, will be replaced, or this curly braces will be replaced by this Py version value. I can have multiple curly braces also here, and multiple values, comma separated. See, 3.1612. Okay. So just play with this syntax a little bit, you will get a hold of it. Nothing complex in this. Okay. Type of language, what will be type of language?
String.
str. Okay. And we discussed this, right? Like indexing, language of 0 will be?
P.
Language of 0 will be P. Now, string, there are lot of functions. Again, like as I told you, there are a lot of things which are inbuilt in Python, inbuilt in programming languages.
Yep.
And you need not, can you explain 12th again? Okay, there is a question on the chat from Siddhant. He wants me to explain this 12 again. So Siddhant, this is what I'm doing here. The curly braces is a placeholder. Maybe see, whenever you have a text, every time you have it as hard coded. right? Every time you have it hard coded. What if you want to change the text on the fly, on the go, you want to change it? So for that, I'm having a placeholder. I'm adding a placeholder here, and dot format, I will add some variable here. So this curly braces will be replaced by the value which I pass in the format function. That is all I'm doing in this. Okay. Now, yeah. So as I mentioned, like there are a lot of things in Python which are inbuilt, and you don't have to reinvent the wheels. Maybe like because you're learning, and if you are not aware about those syntax, try to use something simple which you can come up with. Otherwise, explore, check if there is something available in Python for that. And I will help you, I will guide you guys to think through that also, like how you will be checking, how you will be exploring all those things. But the point here is like the string, there are a lot of functions available for you in Python to work with strings. Okay. So language was a variable. Language is a string for me. There are few functions in Python for string. And if I say language dot lower, this is a function in string. What it will do is it will convert that whole string into lowercase. So if I run this, it will convert everything. So initially, I believe P was capital. It converted it to lowercase. Similarly, upper function will convert it to uppercase. So always, like when you are calling the function, you will call the function, you will give this braces, and if it requires any kind of parameter, we will talk more about functions and custom functions in future classes. But for now, just like whatever inbuilt functions are there, you need to give this brackets, and if that function requires some parameters, you need to pass those parameters in these brackets. Okay. So similarly, like lower, upper, there is this function replace. What this replace function will do, you provide an old value and you provide a new value, and it will replace. So language is what? It is Python 3.6. Okay, I have changed it to 3.612. It will never be able to find it. So let's remove this and run this again.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I just want to know that in code number 12, the output, why is the output like it's in single quoted? Whereas
Yeah. So this is how Jupyter Notebook displays string. Forget about these single quotes in Jupyter. Like this is just how Jupyter Notebook is going to display the strings. But when you are using IDLE or some other kind of text editor or Python IDE, you might not be seeing the single quotes, or you may see a single quote. This is just to represent that this single quote is a string. Something within that is a string. That's it.
okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir,
Yeah,
that
sure.
question is, excuse me, sir, that question number 10. So that when I'm running, I'm getting false. That language 1 equal to language 2.
So you might be
question.
doing something wrong here. You might have added some space or some like capital small letters, something you have messed up. Something might be there. But otherwise, it will definitely give you a true.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just validate,
sir.
just check.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Similarly, like we have this replace function, and I'm saying language.replace equals to 3.6. That is my old value, and my next new value is x.5 x.y. So it is going to like it will search for 3.6 in that whole string, and it will replace it by x.y. That is the function. So this is how it works. Okay. But if you see here, if I run language, what I will get the output as? It's a question for you guys. Okay. Initially my language was 3.6. Then I use this function replace to replace that. So what will be my output if I run this language?
Python x.y. Python x.y.
But it is 3.6 yet.
Python x.y.
but I'm getting 3.6 now. So the reason for that is there are two things. Okay, one is you are doing some change in place. I mean, whatever memory is there where your value is stored, you are making that change, you are making that update on that same memory, in that same memory location. That is one thing. Other thing is function will do some operation and it will just give you an output. It will not change the actual value which is there in the memory. So replace function is not doing it in place. It is not changing anything in your memory. It is just converting and giving you an output. So that your actual data is changing. Okay, your actual data is not changing. Now a simple question: what if I want to change the actual data? What if I want to replace the actual data there? What should I be doing?
Language is equal to language dot replace.
Yes. So language equals to, what I will do is I will just copy this, Control C, and I will say language equals to this. Now if I run language, what will happen? First, language is Python 3.6. It will replace 3.6 with x.y. And then the output of this whole thing will be assigned to variable language, which was my previous variable. And now if I run that, I should get Python x.y. I hope it's clear to everyone. These are some basic Python functions. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, why there is a comma after x dot y in replace?
Why there is this one?
Sir, no, after x dot y.
This one. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's fine. I mean, you can do this also. It will work fine. I mean, I just incorrectly added this comma. I mean, this is not incorrect. There is something called as, like in tuple, we have this option, like we can give a comma after that also, but it will not give you any syntax issue or anything. So basically, replace takes multiple parameters. There are other parameters also that you can add here. And even adding a comma will not hamper anything. Okay.
Okay, sir. Yes.
Without comma also it will work fine. Okay. Now we are discussing about string functions. Okay. Now I want to explore what all string functions I have. Okay. So in some of the IDE you will get these options. Okay. Let me explain that. So because we are discussing string, and whenever you are dealing with string, whenever you are working with string, okay, first you need to analyze, okay, I'm working with string. Can I get something which is there inbuilt in Python for those strings? So what you can do is dir, and you give string is a data type, right? So dir of str. Now if you run this, ideally you have to do print of dir of str. In Python I can do this, but you have to do print of dir of str, right? Then you will get list of all available functions and everything which are there in strings. Okay. So for now, what you can do, anything that starts with double score and ends with double score, ignore that. Ignore that. Okay. Don't worry about those things. Ignore all these that starts with double score and ends with double score. So let me explain why it is there first. Why this double score, like starting with double score and ending with double score is there. If you want to change the behavior, like the default behavior of the function, let's say add. Okay. So add is there. If I want, and what add does when you do add of two strings, for example, if I do hi, I give a space and then plus Amit, what will be my output? I am adding two strings. If I add two numbers, that is mathematical addition. But when I'm adding two strings, it will concatenate them. This will be my output. It will concatenate them. So this is the default behavior of addition, this operator addition for strings, right? But let's say I want to do something else. I want to do something fancy, okay? I want to change the default behavior of add, this add operator in Python in my code. I have that flexibility to do even that. And to do that, what I have to do? I have to override these functionalities. So these double underscore add double underscore, you can override it in, like if you deep dive into object oriented programming, there you can override this default behavior and you can change the default functionality of this plus sign. So that's why this double underscore, for everything that you see here, double score, you have that option of overriding the default functionality and have a functionality of your own. So that is the idea. Now, for now, you can just ignore double underscore, keep like this for future. Maybe you can start exploring, but you can start exploring these functions. Okay. Capitalize, case fold, center, count, encode, ends with, expand tabs, find, format. So again, we may not be able to, for every list, string, tuple, we may not be able to go through all the functions at like one by one. That is not going to be feasible. What you have to do, take this, like we will be discussing some of the functions, and you will need to take this up as an assignment and you will need to go through it. And if you have any questions, doubts, you can bring that up. We can discuss in class. Okay, but these are the functions available to you. Let's say I want to know more about these functions. Then what I will do, simple thing which you, okay, where is that? Oh, it's gone. Okay, so let me just run this. Now, if I let's say I want to know what this capitalize function is doing. Okay, so in some of the IDEs like PyCharm or your Python IDE, which is there, all you can do is str dot capitalize. One second. Oh, give me a moment. Okay, I think this is a better okay, this is a better option to explain for all these things. I can say, okay, but this will not be visible. This is a PyCharm ID. Okay, fine. So I can say str dot I can write like this, str dot capitalize. Okay, and then give a question mark. So this default behavior is in Jupyter Notebook, but in PyCharm and others, you will need to give dot double underscore. Okay, I mean this the small brackets which you saw at the end, you just remove that and then give. Okay, there are few questions. Let me just 1 second. Where is that chat window? One second, guys. I'm facing some issues. Okay, sir. How? Okay. Someone is asking, please give an example of overwriting. No, it's overriding, but that is like we will be discussing those things little bit in your object-oriented classes. Not here. It will be difficult to grasp those concepts right now. But the whole point is, like when you have a default behavior, you want to override that default behavior. You want to change that default behavior. We can do that through those functions which are there inbuilt functions which are starting and ending with double underscore. Okay, but right now we will not be doing that. Okay, sir, how to know the arguments and return type of those functions? Yes, so that is what I was saying. Basically, you have to do question mark, that is like str dot capitalize, and then remove that small brackets, give a question mark in Jupyter Notebook. It will give you a one-line description of the function. Okay, give double question mark, it will give you more details if available. So there is no more details available, but if you give a double question mark, it will give you more details. You can also do in other programming IDEs, maybe question mark will not work. Okay, whatever this ID you are using, you need to check what is going to work for you. And I'm going to just explain some of the things which are there in the IDEs, okay, which you can use. Maybe one of them will work for you. Okay, so str dot capitalize, either you give question mark or you give dot double underscore doc double underscore. Let's run this, and it will give you a one-line description. In other your IDs which are there like PyCharm and everything, you will get this one-line description which will explain what that function will do. Okay, you can also use help. I mean, I think it works something this way: home, help, like this. Yeah, even help, it will give you some of the description. So someone asked how to know the arguments and return types. So here, like if you are just seeing self, that means there is just one value, like the string value which is there, it will take that value. And if there is anything else, that those many number of arguments this particular function. But I will table this for some later time, like where we are discussing custom functions, when I will be explaining all those parameters, arguments, and everything. I will explain those things. But for now, you can see the help documentation this way. Maybe you can give question mark and read about it, or maybe just remove those small brackets, give dot double underscore doc double underscore. You will get some description for those functions and you can use them. Okay. There is a question, sir, please repeat the syntax for capitalize. I believe like there should not be an issue now. Okay. Hope it's clear to everyone. Now what you have to do is, whenever you are dealing with strings, whenever you are working with, sir, please repeat the syntax for capitalize for IDL. See, I am not sure, like I am not very familiar with IDL or IDLE. I have not been using that frequently, but all the different things that I explained here, maybe try to use a question mark or remove that like function sign, that small bracket sign, the sign which like capitalize, you have something like this, right? Capitalize. And this brackets you have, you remove these brackets, give a dot, then give double underscore doc. This will work for sure. This will work for sure. Even help will work for sure. So just try that, check that. Any one of them will work for you. Okay. So again, yes. So what I was saying, when you are working with strings, and you want to do something, just check if there is a function available for you here. First, you need to just go through it, just read it once. Okay. Like let's say I'm doing some kind of, I'm solving some problem and I want to do some specific thing. So first read through this, all the functions which are there. The name itself will give you an idea whether that function will be usable or not. And then to check more, to validate more, deep dive in that function. Check the help, check the documentation, check the docs. Okay, check by giving question mark, one-line description, two-line description, maybe Python documentation you can just check. And explore it, like whether it is going to solve. For now, you might not require that intensive exploration. Basic idea should be fine. Okay. 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 Fair enough. Okay, now let's again coming to sequence, that is list and tuples. String is also a sequence. We discussed about strings. So a lot of things will be carry forward, like a lot of things we will be taking from strings in list and tuples. What all we will be taking, it is a sequence, just like string is a sequence, list and tuple is also a sequence. So you can iterate over the elements, you can go through that elements, you can fetch those elements, you can access those elements through index. You can use a for loop. You can iterate over the elements of that string through a for loop. Okay, these are something which we can understand. These are few things which will be there for sequences. Same will be there for list and tuples also, because list and tuple is a sequence, right? Now, when I'm saying my list is red, green, blue, my tuple is Marco, UK, and true. Okay. So in other programming language, like if you're coming from C or Java, if you remember, like array is a list of homogeneous elements. I mean, you will say int of some variable name, and then you will define that array, and there you can store only integral values, correct? Or maybe you can say string of that, and you will be able to store in string values. Or maybe you can do object of that variable name, and then you will be able to store any values. So basically you will need to define object. By default, Python list and tuple will support object. There is no need for homogeneous data. You can store heterogeneous data. What I mean by homogeneous and heterogeneous data, you can see here. Here, all the elements are string, but here, first two elements are string, and the third element is a Boolean value, right? But this is allowed. This is okay. By default, Python always stores object values. You need not, I mean, it is dynamically typed language, right? So whatever values you specify here, that is going to be stored in this variable, and that will become the data type of that variable. So if I am storing all string, the data type is list, and every value stored is string there. But in this scenario, because some of them are string and one of them is a Boolean value, the data type will be tuple. I mean, this is the syntax, okay? Let me do a little bit of whiteboard. So tuple and string. When you want to define a tuple, what you need to do, A equals to small brackets of 1, 2, 3, and so on. Same thing in a list will be A equals to large brackets 1, 2, 3, and so on. Okay, so this brackets is important. Okay, this brackets is important. If you have a small bracket, that is a tuple. If you have a large bracket, that is a list. Okay, you can also do something this way, like you have this typecasting function, right? You can use tuple and you can specify the values over here. This will also work fine. Okay, or you can say list and you can specify all the values over here. This will also work fine. But again, this is more handy syntax. So again, let's run through these examples. So my list is red, green, blue. My tuple is Marco, UK, and true. So if you see here, large brackets, that means it's a list. Small brackets, that means it's a tuple. Okay. Now, if I say type of my list, what will be the output?
str.
No, it will be list. Now the data type is changing, right? Now we are not dealing with primitive data type. This is list of numbers. List is also a data type. These are the data types which are not. So again, let me just go through that. So In yesterday's class, I mentioned about something called as primitive data type. Primitive data type as in something which will be your that single value thing. In one variable, you can store one value. That is a primitive data type. But when here I'm dealing with multiple values stored together in a sequence of memory. So this is also a data type, and this is a list, and this is a tuple. So if I say type of my list, the type will be list. Type of my tuple, it will be tuple. Okay. Now there is something called as, which we have discussed in the very first class. This is to check if there is something. I mean, these are some of the operators. Okay, so if you remember, we had discussed mathematical operators, logical operators. Okay, similarly, in, not in, these are some of the operators which you can use to check if an element is there in this list or not. Okay, my list is storing few values, red, green, and blue. So if I say red in my list, what will be the output?
True.
True. Okay, one second. Huh? Now, one thing that you need to remember here, although you are doing one line of code like red in my list, and you might be thinking, oh, this will be taking big O of one time, just one operation, right? And if you remember, one single operation is big O of one time. We assume that. Okay, so if I say red in my list, it looks like this is one operation, correct? But this is not. This is not one operation. This is not big O of one. This is just a high level, because Python is a high level language. There are a lot of things which are made or written in such a way in Python. Maybe they have designed the programming language in such a way that it looks like a simple English sentences. Okay, but behind the scenes there are a lot of things that are happening. So when I'm saying red in my list, what actually is happening, it is going in a for loop. So it will say for colors in my list. So whatever colors that you have, red, green, blue in your list, it will just go through that loop and then check if red equals to color or color equals to red, whatever double equals to. Correct? That means my list is having some values like red, blue, green. So first it will be red, then it will be blue, then it will be green. When it is iterating in the for loop, one by one these elements will be picked and then validated, will be checked. So although you are writing this statement, actually this is what is happening. And because it is going in a loop, this will be big O of n times. That is, n is what here? The number of elements in that list. Because your for loop will iterate till that number of elements in that list, right? So it is going to be big O of n and not big O of 1. I hope I have made my point clear. Okay, so although it looks like that just in is a single operation, but indeed it is a for loop in Python. Okay, and this big O of n is for large numbers, like when you have this huge list. But because I have I know that it is a fixed value of 3 colors, then it is big O of 1. I can say it is big O of 1 because it is, see, it will take you some time to understand this, or maybe fully grasp this thing, like when it will be big O of 1, big O of n, but you will get it there. Okay, when this list is very large or that number is very large, then you say big O of n. But because I know this is just 3, it is fixed, it is going to be big O of 1. The whole point I'm trying to make here is in is not a single operation. Behind the scenes, it goes for a loop. It goes for a for loop. Okay. Now, if I say John in my tuple, what will be the output? My tuple stores Marco, UK, and true. If I say John in my tuple, what will be the output?
False.
false. Okay. There is another operator which you can say not in. So that is just opposite of in. What will be the output?
True.
True. Okay. Yeah. So now again, for item in my list, print item. So what are the item in my list? It is red, green, blue. So what it will print? It will just print red, green, blue, right? No questions there, correct? Okay. Now again, you can check. So some of the like string, maybe most of the functions will be self-intuitive. I may not be discussing lot of string functions. You can just go through it once, and we can discuss like if you have any doubts. Some of the important functions which are there in this string, I will prepare that, and we can like I will prepare a similar kind of what you say exercise kind of all code snippets for next class, and we will discuss that. But there are some important functions which you must know in list and tuple. Okay, so let me just explain some of the things here which will be easier for you to understand. Okay, tuple and list. Just don't memorize all the functions which are there. A lot of things are self-intuitive here. Okay, what I know about tuple and list, I know that tuple is immutable. That is, I cannot change. Once I have defined tuple, I cannot change it. Okay, so if you cannot change it, all the inbuilt functions like adding some element, removing some element, replacing some elements, all are gone. There will be nothing of that sorts, right? Because tuple you cannot change. So there will not be a function to add elements to that tuple or delete something or replace something or remove something. So those will not be there. There could be a function called as len. Len is, by the way, not function of tuple. It is function of object. Okay. It is just outside like your like whatever variable you have, you say len of that variable. It counts the number of elements in that variable. So just, okay, the len is a function that we have already discussed. Let it be. So lot of the functions which will which are there to add, delete, replace, those will not be there in tuple. But because list is mutable, you can change list. All those adding, removing, replacing functions will be there. Now, the best way to check is what I will do, dir of list. I will get all the functions. Okay. Now I have to just, for now, we will need to ignore this double underscore syntax and check the functions which are there for list. So append is one function. Again, you can go through the descriptions, right? Append is to add elements in the list. Clear is to clear all the elements from the list. Copy, count, extend, index, insert, pop, remove, reverse, sort. So the function name itself will give you a lot of sense, like a lot of intuition, what this function is going to do for me. And further on, you can check more using the dir function or help function. I will run through some of the examples for you in next class, but I want you guys to go through these functions once so that it will be helpful for you to understand it more, and you will have some questions beforehand and we can discuss those things. Okay, so these are some of the functions which are there in tuple. Similarly, the functions in these are functions in list. Let's check functions which are there in tuple. So these are like just two functions. One is count, the other one is index, right? All this sort, reverse, remove, pop, insert, everything is gone because tuple is immutable. You cannot change it. Okay, guys, I'm back. Okay, let me just go through the questions once. Sir, in a tuples, elements can't be arranged. That means their index remains fixed. Yes, tuples are immutable. So whatever elements are there, it is fixed. I mean, you cannot change them. I mean, whenever you are doing some change, basically what is happening behind the scenes is it is going to discard that tuple, that memory location, and it will create a new memory location for you. Okay, we will see through some of the examples. I will prepare those set of examples, snippet codes, and I will explain those to you. But just for now, remember, you cannot change a tuple. Okay, and there will be not a change. Like if the index, whatever elements are there and whatever index is there for that element, that will remain fixed. Okay. Another question is, sir, can you please show an example of taking multiple input for a list using split? Yes, I will do that. I will explain this part of space. Okay. And if I say this is A, and then at the end I can say print, or let's do that in next line. So first let's accept this 1 space 2 space 3. If I hit enter, and then now if I say print A, what will be the output?
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, space will be there, all
Yes,
in
sir.
a single line. It will be a string, right? 1, 2, 3, this is going to be a string for me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is all,
Yes.
this is one single string. This is not 3 different values. It is all single string. Okay. Now what I can do is I can say a dot split. So by default, if I'm not specifying anything here, by default, the delimiter is space for me. Okay, the delimiter is space for me. So it is going to split this whole text. Like wherever it finds a space, it will split there. Now if I do a dot split, it will give me a list of values that is 1, 2, and 3. But still it will be all string. You will need to transform this. You will need to convert this to integral values when you are iterating in a for loop or something. So a dot split, by default, it will give you a list of, you can store this somewhere. Like if you want to store it in a variable b equals to a dot split, and then if you do type of b, it is a list. And if you want to print b, you can say print b. Okay. Now, there is another question. So, sir, as a tuple is immutable, so time complexity to access the element should be big O of 1, or is it big O of n? Okay, very good question, Rachana. So the thing is, time complexity to, because you know the index are fixed, you know the index are fixed, but yesterday's class we were discussing that your variable, like if I'm saying marks equals to this is a tuple 1, 2, 3, 4, this variable marks knows about only the first index. It knows only about the first index. It doesn't know about anything after that. So I mean, if you are just doing a search, if you're searching, like if you're going, you're saying for marks in marks, that means what? I'm iterating through it. I'm going element by element. It is big O of n. When I'm iterating element by element, it is big O of n. Okay, but like if I'm fetching this value, like through using index, okay, mark of, let's say some value 5 or something 4, then it will be big O of 1. I hope you got the difference, right? When I'm going element by element, first I will validate this value, then I will validate this value, then I will validate the third value, that way. So I am taking steps, right? I'm going step by step. That is going to take big O of n time. No doubt, no question should be there about that. Okay, because I'm taking taking all the steps which are there. But when I'm searching through index, it will take big of one.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so the functions which are there in list, tuple, and strings, I will go through them. I will prepare like some of the important ones, because see, 5 or 6 functions, if I explain from those string and from list and tuple, it will be make a lot of sense for you, and you will be able to understand rest of the functions also. Okay, but I urge you guys to ask this, like if you can go through these functions, it will not hardly take something in 30 minutes or something. If you can go through these list of functions once, just using that help function or dir function, that is going to be helpful to explain. Okay, so we will be doing that in next class. Now